Ethan Nichols and Carissa Horton. Photo credit. Newson 6com in 2011. Ethan Nichols, 21, and Carissa Horton, 18, met after Horton moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ethan had a job at Bluebell Creamery, and Carissa was a freshman at Oral Roberts University. Oru. The parents of the young couple had known each other in Iowa, and Ethan's mother had asked him to help Carissa become comfortable with her new environment, immediately forming a bond. They spent more and more time together. On a late September evening in 2011, the young couple was taking a stroll through Hicks Park. They were approached by two young men and forced to hand over their valuables. This is where most stories of robbery would begin and end. However, instead of allowing the couple to go, the robbers shot Nichols and Horton execution style. Then the perpetrators took Nichols' car and left the scene. The victims' bodies were discovered in the park the next day. The news crew of a local ABC affiliate arrived on the scene soon after the couple was discovered by a jogger. One man seemingly eager to be interviewed was Darren Price, a local resident who expressed his shock at the murder. He stated that he no longer felt safe living in the area. Police immediately began the search for the stolen car. It wasn't long before it was discovered at a local apartment complex. As officers watched closely, Price and Gerard Davis got into the vehicle. The police tried to stop the men, but they sped away. After crashing the vehicle during their escape attempt, Price and Davis were arrested. The pair was soon charged with the murders. Davis pleaded guilty to the shootings, and Price was convicted at trial. Both were given life sentences for Alexander Obrenovic and Dragan Masin. Photo credit. Historian Srpsko-UK King Alexander I Tokan Alexander Obrenovic ruled Serbia from 1889 until he and his wife, Queen Draga, were assassinated in 1903. Alexander had assumed the throne under a regency after his father, King Milan I, unexpectedly abdicated when Alexander was only 12 years old. Upon reaching his 16th birthday in 1893, Alexander officially declared himself of age, which would normally happen at 18, and dismissed the regents. In summer 1900, Alexander announced his intended marriage to Draga Masin, a beautiful and disreputable widow 10 years his senior. This proved an unpopular move, particularly with Alexander's parents. Meanwhile, in France, an exiled Serbian prince, 60ish Peter Karađorđević, was gaining momentum in his attempts to overthrow the young King Alexander I. Peter intended to rule Serbia himself. Earlier, he had gone into exile with his father, Prince Alexander, who had ruled Serbia until his abdication in 1858. That occurred after he refused to enter the Crimean War, which made him unpopular with his council. Near midnight on June 10, 1903, army officers under orders from Karađorđević entered the palace of King Alexander I and Queen Draga. To save themselves, the king and queen hid in an upstairs cupboard. However, they were discovered by the group after hours of searching. In the early morning of June 11, the couple was shot dead, disemboweled, and thrown from a second-floor window. They were later buried in a crypt in Belgrade. 510 Deadliest Serial Killer Couples by Kill Count 5. Siddiqa and Kayum. Photo credit. India Times.com in 2010, newspapers across the world began reporting the story of two Afghan nationals who were found by the Taliban to have committed adultery. Their punishment shocked the world. On a Sunday morning in August 2010, the Taliban arrested Siddiqa, 19, and Kayum, 25, in their village in northern Kunduz province and brought them to an open area. They were surrounded by members of their community, who had been forced to attend the public event by leaders of the local Taliban militia dressed in a burqa. Siddiqa had been placed in a hole up to her waist. Meanwhile, Kayum was blindfolded and had his hands tied behind his back. The charge of breaking Islamic law was read to them. Apparently, Siddiqa had been sold to a rich family with the intention of marriage. Unhappy with this, she ran off and married her true love, Kayum. Leaders of the local, usually peaceful community responded calmly. They stated that if the couple returned and Kayum's family came up with $9,000, the amount originally paid for Siddiqa's marriage to the other man, then Siddiqa and Kayum would be allowed to marry. Unfortunately, the Taliban intervened. As the charges against the couple were read, members of the crowd began picking up large rocks to commence a punishment. Siddiqa was murdered first. The rocks smashed against her body, including her head, until she fell. She was also shot. After her death, the crowd moved on to Kayum. He cried as he was murdered by the same punishment. The crowd then dispersed with their murderers. Siddiqa and Kayum had joined a long list of Afghans killed in the most brutal fashion in the name of religion. 6.